Welcome to No Clip, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Rutherman.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, which is a game that was developed by Nintendo, EAD, or Grezzo, as it's referred to in the in the credits, at least.
They did the Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS.
Right,
it's
the
developed
3DS
by Grezzo.
Mm-hmm. It was published by Nintendo and was released originally in 1998 on the N64, in 2002 on the GameCube, and 2011 on the 3DS.
But first, if you give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So Ocarina of Time 3D, which we did play the 3DS version of the game, which is the most convenient for us. Mm-hmm. We don't have a copy of this on N64.
Yeah, we do have the GameCube port.
Mm-hmm. We do also have an N64 cartridge of Majora's Mask that we don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Which is just, I guess, a thing that happens when you do a video game podcast.
Yeah, it's a creepypasta cartridge. We're too afraid to play it.
It's the Ben Drowned version. But Ocarina of Time is an action-adventure game. It is basically a genre-inventing game. The majority of action-adventure games that you have played in your life in some way hark back to what this game did.
The majority.
The majority of them. And it is considered by a lot of people to be like one of the best games ever made. Now, I don't like this game. But I want to stress here, not only am I playing the 3DS version, which is obviously the losers, the cowards' way out of playing the most recent version of the game, but additionally, this is everything that we're going to say is like a retrospective sort of thing. So I will not ever say that this game doesn't deserve a lot of the praise that it gets, unless that praise is like, if you play Ocarina of Time right now, you'll have a good time. Then I might push back a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's okay, because we just recently talked about Metal Gear Solid 2, and like that's my version of this, where it's like a classic game that it just doesn't do a lot for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, everybody's got one, at least.
Mm-hmm. So, in Ocarina of Time, if you've played a Zelda game before, it's going to be hard for me to describe this game on a mechanical level in a way that means anything to anybody, because you all basically know what you do in a Zelda game at this point. You go around, you complete dungeons, and you collect items, and you use those items to solve puzzles and beat enemies and pick up big rocks. And that's the gameplay loop. A lot of what makes a Zelda game good or bad is the design of those dungeons. And in very rare instances, the thing that can make a Zelda game good is what you do outside of the dungeons.
Yeah, for me, that's the biggest difference maker, but I feel like that differs from person to person. I
feel like that is... Okay, we're going to immediately get into this. That is the thing I think this game fails at the most.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the open world of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a boring nothing, and the dungeons are where all of the good content is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't saying, like, I think Ocarina's great because it does that stuff good. I'm just saying, like, what makes me like a Zelda game, like, makes them stand out to me is often the strength of what's in between the dungeons, less so than the dungeons themselves. Because as far as all the ones that I've played, I feel like the dungeons are always good.
Sure.
So...
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that is sort of like, that's the specialty of the series at this point. Where, well, not at this point, but like at the point of this game being released, is this game took great pains to make all of its dungeons very differentiable and full of new things. It isn't till the very end of the game that you get stuff that like repeats, like puzzles and things that are similar to other things you've done, and it's mostly like that just so that you can cycle through all of your old items and keep things as fresh as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I do I like that part of it. I feel like I've grown up in an era of Zelda discourse where everyone likes to talk about the Zelda formula, big quotes around that, and how you get the item in the dungeon, you use the item to beat the boss, then you go to the next one, you get the item, you use the item to beat the boss. But I feel like there's a lot more diversity in the items you use in Ocarina than I remembered, and I think than people give it credit for.
Yeah, people like to, I think, over-exaggerate the things in their minds, and is actually kind of rare for people to go back and play older games. But yeah, like, there's, like, the hammer in this game, like, you never really have to use it outside of the dungeon. So there are some offenders, but, like, the hook shot, you even get that outside of the dungeon, and then have to use it to get in, which I've always thought that was cool. And yeah, like, you keep using that, you keep using the bow. Like, the major things, yeah, are used throughout. So yeah, I also think it gets over-exaggerated.
Yeah, I do want to start. I want to talk about the game as positively as I can, because I'm aware of the 1998, so 23-year gap between when this game came out and when I'm playing it now. This is my first time through the game. I've gone through it, according to my 3DS, I've gone through it twice on that console, and I played the GameCube version, but I don't think I ever beat it.
Yeah, I didn't play it at the time either, outside of, like, renting it from Blockbuster twice, and probably getting, like, one spiritual stone and then having to take it back on Monday or whatever. But I think I've played this game like 7 times. But yeah, and I like it a lot, but I'm not like somebody that's like super nostalgic for it. Like, it's not my favorite, but like, I think I had a similar experience with Ocarina of Time, for all you longtime listeners, that like JJ describes with Metal Gear, where he played it long after the fact and just like really clicked with it. For me, like, Ocarina of Time is really easy for me to appreciate and understand why people like it so much.
Sure. And I can understand why people like it. I think that
and I also have a good time playing it.
Like, I think that there is the thing that this Zelda game does really well is it is like in that world that existed very briefly, where a game could just where boys could be boys and games could be games, where the plot of Zelda Ocarina of Time is extremely, like, bare bones, I guess. It's not like a big fleshed out world. There are some long dialogue sequences, but they're not that long in the grand scheme of things. And it's sort of like steeped in this mythology that the game just sort of gives you an impression of. Yeah. Which means that a lot of the time that you spend in the game is just sort of exploring and looking around.
Yeah, it's like you experience the world of a Zelda game more than, there's like a story.
Yeah, and I think that Ocarina does a really good job of conveying that world, I guess.
I agree. Like, my big picture thing I wanted to get into at the beginning to just kind of seed this in yours and the listeners' minds is, like, I just wanted to talk about the idea of, like, game development by, like, prolific, like, studios and designers who go on to be prolific figures in the industry. Because, like, I feel like, especially with Nintendo, and you also see it with, like, Square Enix and, like, Kojima Productions and etc., you see them, like, kind of like when they're young, they make a game that's really good that people connect with, and then, like, it's so popular in its time, it casts a shadow over the rest of their work. And I just feel like you can really see that in Ocarina of Time. Because, like, there's a lot of, like, the best way I could come up with to describe it is, like, this, like, inspired design where it feels like the tutorial at the beginning, like, it feels like they're really excited to be working with the 3D, and they're, like, really passionate, and they have all these ideas, like the Deku Tree really focuses on the verticality because they're like, oh, it's Zelda, but it's 3D now. You have to jump down the middle of the dungeon to break the spider web, and, like, to fight the first boss, you have to look up at it because you have, like, the first-person view option, and it really takes advantage of a lot of the tools it has, and, like, I think as a result, you get a lot of personality in this game. Like, this wasn't my first Zelda, but I think, like, with the exception of, like, Wind Waker, this probably has like the most personality of like all the 3D Zeldas, like right off the bat.
And it's like a personality that is steeped in its own like technology, like the fact that it is based so heavily around this 3D.
Yeah, and like the fact that like Navi is like the lock-on cursor and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like creativity there that is really palpable. And for me, like that's probably the thing that makes me come back to this a lot. Like there's just something that I connect with on that level. Like, and the way I started talking about this, like Nintendo at this time, I feel like that's what they were really good at. And they've kind of fallen off a little bit with that kind of stuff as they've gotten older.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite elements of this game is the fact that, because people talk all the time about, Lakitu's the camera in Super Mario 64.
Yeah, that's another great example.
Yeah, where they were like, well, people aren't going to understand a 3D camera, so we have to have like an in-game reason for it to be the way that it is. And in this game, having Navi as the lock-on and then having Navi not be able to target Ganondorf in the final fight is really just like a fantastic touch.
Yep.
It's like one of those
Get
things
rid of
that,
the crutch.
Yeah, if people didn't know about Ocarina of Time, like if it was some like unknown game, I would be like, oh dude, the game is so fucking, it goes so far in on its mechanics that you can't even use the lock-on in the final fight because it's a thing and the boss says no with a dark wave of energy. And it's like, and that would be like one of my selling points on getting people to play this game.
Yeah. And then also you lose the Master Sword in the final boss fight too, and you have to rely on your items.
Yep.
Not to get too much into the final boss already, but yeah, like really cool examples of like getting rid of the player's crutch, which is always like cool when done well, like when done effectively.
Yeah. I think that's also a good thing. If we're going to couch this discussion already in this game is many years old and therefore my experience of the game now doesn't reflect what my experience of the game would be then.
Sure.
We should also couch it in this is coming out on what is essentially brand new technology, and a lot of the design decisions can be chalked up to that, both good and bad. So I think that is a good amount of disclaimer.
Yeah. No, it's definitely clunky in places, like old games, early 3D games especially tend to be. And if you went back and played the original game, like you would not.
I'd still be playing it right now.
You wouldn't even get halfway through it.
Yeah. Gotta open the menu. gotta
put those iron boots on.
Yep. Do the iron boots challenge. That one is a joke just for Dan. So, all right, where am I? Where are we at? Talking about this, like, I guess, like, sort of the 3D aspects of it is a good way of starting. And I don't mean the 3DS.
The fact that it is in 3D as opposed to top-down.
And going into sort of the that first dungeon. We'll start there because I think that you brought up like dropping down through the spiderweb in the middle of the dungeon, which I think is maybe the height of this game's cool design for me.
It is a highlight.
Yeah, it's very good, and it uses things that are almost like foreshadowing later games in the series. Even in that dungeon where you use like sticks to transport fire around. Which can then you can use to burn things, and then bombs interact differently with different things. There's a lot of the puzzles in this game use real world logic in the way that we have described in previous episodes as being big fans of. It's like the thing where you can take what you would expect to happen in the real world and apply it to the game without the game having to tell you about it. And once again, I don't know if this is a 3DS thing or not, but I feel like from what I've heard, it seems like Navi probably would have chimed in a lot more to say like, hey, look at those rocks on the wall, don't they look like they would be explodable?
Yeah, I can't say that I remember. I actually, like, when I was younger, I'm really patient now, but I feel like I was even more so back then, because like I don't really remember Navi being annoying. Like I know she is because people always complain about it, But then I was playing it this time, and I was like, oh my god, she really does chime in, like, constantly. Like, I don't remember it this way. And wouldn't be surprised if it was even worse than the original release.
Yeah, and then, like, fucking Gabora Naboro, Zoro, the Masked Swordsman, the owl guy.
Yeah, whatever his name is.
Yeah. I found that to be more irritating than Navi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, for me, it works because it is clearly just a joke.
Yes.
Like, at an impatient player's expense.
But think to two of a similar kind of joke.
Sure.
The Zora King taking a million years to scoot is extremely funny.
Yeah.
I don't like the owl specifically because what it does is it tells you what to do all the time, even when it is screamingly obvious.
Yeah, it's only a couple of times he shows up, though.
I mean, a couple usually means two, and he shows up like 12 times.
Oh, come on.
I mean, also, he'll show up when you enter his zone in Hyrule Field as well. Like,
Sure.
So, and it forces you into another cutscene with him. But it's like, it's a combination of, like, the obvious joke that they were going for, where they put the yes and no in different places, and make it so that there's a chance that you'll accidentally say that you do want to hear what he says again. And the fact that what he normally says is like, hey, I know that you just got done talking to the Deku Tree, and he said to go to Hyrule Castle, but I think you should go to Hyrule Castle. Do you want to hear what I said again? And it's like, no, because you just told me what the other guy already said again. And it's not a helpful feature, and the joke isn't as funny as it could have been, and I think it mostly detracts from any, like, exploration fun that the player could be having.
It doesn't bother me at all.
Navi doesn't bother me at all.
I feel like he only showed up, like, I talked to him like 4 times in this playthrough.
That just is impossible, but yeah.
I feel like he only shows up, like, if I'm being super rose-colored glasses and under-exaggerating, I feel like max it's like 6.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say I could probably name 4, and it would leave out a lot of stuff that happens in the middle. Because he does show up right after you leave the forest. He shows up when you enter the Lost Woods.
I guess I didn't remember that one.
He shows up if you go anywhere near the vicinity of Lake Hylia.
Right, you had to initiate dialogue with him, though. Like, you have to talk to him, don't you?
No, he's in a tree, and if you come within, like, 600 feet of the tree, he's like, oh, that way is, like, Lake Hylia, and if you go up that way, you'll end up in Gerudo Desert.
I don't think I've ever encountered him there.
You didn't try and go there early, probably?
No.
And then I know that he shows up after you get the silver gauntlets in the temple to tell you to go back and become an adult.
Right.
Even though the silver gauntlets say they can't be used by a child.
Right.
It just seems like it's a really unnecessary guy.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I just feel like it's not at all annoying, personally. But I will accept that I don't know, am super patient.
And observant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and to me, that plays into
the fact that he can show up and talk to you in the field, and I somehow just never ran into him. It does seem pretty lame.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff, but I think that I'm straying a lot from my original point. But,
sure.
To me, it plays into sort of the, like, really bizarre difficulty curve in this game, because, first of all, like, I don't think that combat is ever too hard if you are the kind of person who sort of, like, goes around and does stuff. I can see dying on occasion reasonably.
Yeah, I feel like this would be hard for a kid. Like, I feel like if you're a less observant player, the combat can feel hard. Like, I feel like thinking back to my first playthrough, which was 1,000 billion years ago, I feel like I can remember the combat feeling hard, like fighting the Stalfos in the first dungeon,
right,
and stuff. I mean, in the the forest temple. But yeah, like once you just kind of like, if you actually just like stop and pay attention to like what's happening and how the enemies are behaving, it's really pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. No, the hardest enemy in the game to fight that is not a boss is the large Deku Baba. Because they just sort of are an active hitbox at all times. So you really just have to hit them with ranged weapons. And that is not challenging, really. It was just, I always came out of those fights going like, why didn't I just shoot that with an arrow? And that's sort of, a lot of I mean, we'll talk about combat as like a thing in a bit. Because I have a lot of, we'll call it nuance on that. But what I was talking about before as far as difficulty in the game goes is combat isn't particularly difficult and the overworld stuff isn't particularly hard, and that is the stuff that they introduce people to tell you about and like obviously you need the quest giver, right? Like you need Sheik to show up and be like, oh, go to the forest temple, and then you in your head go, I go to the Great Deku Tree, because that's where the forest was before. And then you can sort of figure out where you're actually supposed to go once you have an idea in your head. And that's the stuff that they feel it necessary to put in, like, helpers for. They're like, oh, forest. Go to the forest. I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, I understand I'm supposed to go to the forest now. But the stuff that's actually difficult in this game is just really obtuse puzzle solving, where a lot of times it's clear as to what's going on, but then other times it's just like, we put invisible platforms here, like, we don't know why, and there's no indication that they would be there. But now that you've tried everything else, you can pop the old eye on and notice that there is a way through here. And there's no help for that at all. So I found the difficulty to be really inconsistent throughout the game, where in the beginning I was like, none of these dungeons are hard, I'm just doing stuff and eventually getting to the end. And then at the end I was like, I don't know what I'm doing at all in some of these.
Yeah, like I think my read on it is like they clearly, it feels like they worried a lot about people just understanding what a 3D game is. And that's why they tell you, like, they feel like they had to like push players into be like, oh, like Hylia's over there and Gerudo Desert's over there. There's other stuff, not just what, on the right side of the map. Which I think makes it some amount of sense if you dial your mind back to that time and what it was like to play games back then. But yeah, like, I think the hardest parts of this game are progressing in between dungeons in the child timeline. Like having to get the fish to feed to Jabu Jabu and like, et cetera, like diving down into the lake or under the Zora's domain to get into Lake Hylia to get the bottle to give to the king and stuff. I remember getting like stuck on that stuff forever, like my first time I played the game. But like, it seems somewhat intentional, and I have really mixed feelings on it, because I do feel like the child timeline has this really like laid back feel to it, where you're kind of like encouraged to just explore and like just see what the world is like and to take your time. Much like being a kid, I think, is like the theming of it is interesting, and especially the way it contrasts with when you're an adult. But like, it is just a little bit too obtuse, but like, it, once again, one of those things that feels really unique about this game. And they always like reinvent the wheel, like outside of the basic formula when they do a new Zelda. And it's one of those things I kind of like to see a little bit more of, like try to iterate on that idea, because like I really like having to like explore and it to feel a little bit more lax and open at the beginning. I don't know, it just gives it a cool atmosphere, I think.
Yeah, it's got like, it has a focus on exploration that is different than what you get out of something like a Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, or even the older ones. Yeah, it's like they're trying to like bring a different kind of like exploration feel to it.
And it's not something that you get very often anymore. There are not like a million waypoints everywhere. Like, part of what Breath of the Wild did that made it interesting and fun with the open world formula is it made it so that you had a lot of options to choose from to do. And there were some things that you could just find along the way, but mostly what you were doing is stuff that was either entirely optional or marked on the map with a little gold marker. And yeah, the Child Link section doesn't have any of that. You just sort of have to go to all the zones and figure out what you're supposed to do. And I can comfortably say that in the 8 years that it's been since I played this game the last time, that I did not remember anything.
Yeah. As somebody who's played it like 7 times, I always forget what to do.
Yeah. Like, I did actually get into Lake Hylia pretty easily.
Yeah, if you pay attention, like the diving minigame highlights the little hole in the lake.
Yeah. It was the diving minigame that got me there. But the fish, it took me... I didn't know that's what I was supposed to do, though I had an inkling in the back of my head that there was something in Zora's Domain, and I just couldn't resist catching the fish. That was really all it was. I saw the fish in the lake and was like, oh, I'm going to scoop that bad boy up. And that was it. And eventually I got... My brain put it together that was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of intended.
Don't you get a bottle as a reward for the diving game? Or no, you get it from getting the letter.
Right, you get the silver scale as the reward for the diving game.
So yeah, you do get, like, there's, like, hints or, like, little nudges.
Yeah.
But you do really have to think for yourself.
And there were moments where I didn't think for myself, because I'm a big fan of Legend of Zelda speedruns. And the thing that I see people do more than anything in Ocarina of Time is catch all those cuckoos, because you need the bottle in order to do the wrong warp glitch. So I've seen people do this thing where they jump onto the fence to get the cuckoo early, and I totally was like, I know this. It's a Unix system. And got that bottle from the cuckoo lady, and I was like, oh, this game's gonna be a breeze. And then I realized that because they don't do any of the dungeons, I was fucked. So yeah, I did have to figure a lot of stuff out myself. But yeah, the Zora's Domain part I think is tough. Goron Village I think is more straightforward.
That one always trips me up too, but that might be a result of another thing we've talked about on this podcast, whereas you go into replaying a game with too much knowledge and you try to skip steps.
Sure,
I'm always trying to, like, there's something like, do I have to bomb the Goron and then do I play the song? And it's like, do I have to light all the torches, or is that a separate thing? Do I have to jump off the middle part into the spinny big Goron pot? Is that part of the quest, or does that get me like an item or like a, so I'm like, I know all these things I have to do and I don't remember the order. Go. So I always like fuck with myself there.
I sure did try and jump into that pot for like 10 minutes.
It's really not that hard, at least I don't think it is.
I never got it.
Oh, really?
I eventually Googled what the fuck the spinning pot was, and you throw a bomb in it.
Oh, okay, you throw a bomb in it. Oh, and it explodes, yeah. But yeah, it's not that hard to jump into, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, and I also know you have to like go back to Saria and learn Saria's song, and you can play that for the chief in whatever. So yeah, I always mess up the order. I'm like, do I leave and go back, and do I blah blah blah? Because you go into that one little tunnel and you can hear the Saria song music, but you can't blow it up yet because you don't have the bracelet. So you're like, yeah, I just get in my own head in that area a lot.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think that the too much knowledge to be able to play it fresh, but not enough knowledge to just know how to do it, is the horrible middle bit.
Yeah, that's where it really gets me, is Goron City or whatever.
I will say the Saria song thing, I don't get. I do not understand why that is the solution to that puzzle.
Yeah, I kind of like what they're going for on paper, but it's not an idea they really follow through on. It's like someone tell the guy, like his guard outside of his room tells you he likes to dance, and then there's like the hallway is like right next to his room is where you can hear the song. So I think that's how you're supposed to put it together. And I like the idea on paper of like having to go back to the previous area to get a thing to progress. But it's not something that's, like I said, like followed through on or like ever really fleshed out into like an interesting feature of the game.
Right. Yeah, I think if there's a big design thing that I think that Ocarina is like failing at, I guess, like something that it could have done better but just didn't, and probably due to just inexperience with the format, that kind of a thing. There is like a missed potential in how complicated they could have made certain things, as opposed to just making individual like one room complicated things. I think that like larger, more complicated puzzles with simpler setups and simpler nodes inside of them would have gone a long way in a game where you can literally go backwards and forwards through time. Like, this is, I've said it to you, but the Spirit Temple is my favorite temple in this game, and a huge, giant reason for that is because you do half of it as a kid, and then you come back and do half of it as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have loved to have seen you have to do it more times.
Yeah, I feel like that one ends up as a result being way too easy.
Sure.
And like the two different sides don't ever really interact, which I think feels like missed potential. But I was gonna say something else. Oh, I think it's one of the, like what you're saying. Yeah, it's why the Deku Tree stands out, is because it has on the micro level like the kind of puzzle rooms like the rest of the game has, but then there's like a macro puzzle of like getting through the spider web of the tree.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this game doesn't have that quite as much. Like the water temple has it with the water level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it might be the technology a little bit, or yeah, like you said, inexperience designing for like a Zelda dungeon, but 3D. And it is probably like impressive that the dungeons are as good as they are, given that, because it seems like it would be really hard. But yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't like capitalize on that, like, and they don't really use the time travel in puzzles very much.
Right.
And when they do, it's in like the most simple way.
Mm-hmm. Beans.
Yeah, the beans, and I guess maybe that is it.
Yeah, I bought all the beans in this game. I planted one.
Oh yeah, the beans. Like my thing on the magic beans are, they kind of, to me, highlight like how once it's kind of like what I was saying with the dungeon going with too much knowledge, but series wide.
Right.
Because I'm so used to using certain items, if they introduce one that's new and unique, I like don't ever think to use it. Because like, I think like my first playthrough, yeah, I did like you did. I only planted them in one spot and then just never noticed or thought to use them ever.
Right.
But you can use them to get a couple of heart pieces. So I actually did all of them this time.
Oh, wow.
And there were ones where I was like, because there are certain, like the one leading to Zora's domain, like the river, there's a heart piece like on a platform.
Yeah, that's the one that I did plant the seed, because it's right by the bean man.
You don't even need the beanstalk to get it. There's a cuckoo like right at the beginning of the area, and you just pick it up and you take it up the path, and then you just use it to glide to the platform.
Okay, I actually did get that one with the cuckoo.
Yeah.
There's another one that's like on a weird middle platform that I got with the bean.
Yeah, you can get that with the boomerang as well.
Oh shit.
But yeah, it's stuff like that like took me like to way too long in the game to even think about, because I'm like, I need like the hook shot, or like I need some other item, and I just run right past it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't have that knowledge, I might actually try harder and figure it out.
Yeah. I don't know where I land entirely on that, because I agree. I'm gonna take back a bit of what I said, because they do use more macro level puzzle solving in some of the optional like heart piece stuff. And I super didn't get anywhere near all of the heart pieces, so there could very well be stuff there that I am not thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the classic example of this is teaching the Song of Storms to the guy so that he can teach it to you as an adult. He teaches it to you as an adult, so you can teach it to him as a kid, so you can get into the well.
Yeah,
that is a necessary part of the game that requires time travel and leads into a dungeon. So I do like that. Like, that is good, and I think makes good use of the time travel in a way that has, like, an appropriate amount of setup as well, because you can run in there, like, 20 minutes into the game and be like, oh, there's the guy. And be thinking about that, having that stew.
Yeah.
And so there could be some other things that you get heart pieces for using the beans or using other mechanics, like just waiting until you get some of the higher level like items that I just didn't bother to ever go back for.
Yeah. The hammer was another one on this one. Like, I felt really dumb because I've played this game before, and I should know this, but it's a Unix system, for Christ's sake. But like, I tried bombing a rock and it didn't blow up. I'm like, that's weird. And then I just kind of like walked away all the time. I had the hammer and didn't try and hit the rock with it because I'm not used to using the hammer.
Yeah. I don't remember breaking any rocks.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some you have to.
Yeah, there's certain rocks, like it's in like Hyrule Field or whatever, you can't bomb, and the solution is you have to break them with the Megaton hammer.
Makes sense. I didn't bomb a whole lot of rocks.
Yeah.
In total, so this is all tracking well with me.
Yes.
God. Okay.
So, how do you feel about the Ocarina of Time? The actual like ocarina and how it's like used as like a mechanic in the game, like playing the songs and everything.
I am split, I would say. I think it's as far as like the instruments in Zelda games and how they've become sort of like a staple of it. I think the ocarina works well. I think that it does its intended purpose. I wish it was a little faster to do. Like if you're just trying an ocarina on something and it has to go through the ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. You're like, oh, okay, we're doing the whole song, huh? Every time that you play it. And Zelda's Lullaby gets used, I think, like, just way too much. But other than that, like, I like that it's a puzzle solution. I like that it has alternative things. Maybe my favorite thing in the whole game is learning the Scarecrow Song. And I used it practically, like, 2 times.
Yeah, I really don't get it. Like, I feel like I've gotten the Scarecrow Song in only like half my playthroughs, and then like have tried to use it and never gotten anything to happen. And I'm like, I should look up what this is even for, and just never have.
Right. Well, it's just occasionally Navi will fly off to a spot and be green, and that's a cue that there's something untoward about that.
Right.
And I
know sometimes you can play like Zelda's Lullaby in those spots and it'll do a thing.
Yeah, and sometimes you can play the Song of Time as well.
Yeah.
And it will spawn a time block. I wish that was more clear. I wish that there were more instances where doing it mattered or did anything. But I will call out that the Scarecrow Song is the one that I like because oftentimes you'll be looking at a distant platform and go, now how do I get over there? And the answer is you play the Scarecrow Song, the Scarecrow pops up, and then you can hookshot to it. And it's just there to like get extra like materials and stuff, but like ammo or a heart, something like that. But I like its implementation. I like that it's there. I just wish that there was like a bit more of an indication where what song you're supposed to use, even because sometimes I would play the Scarecrow Song, nothing would happen. Then I play the Song of Time and a block appears, and I was like, well, I just wasted like literally 45 seconds listening to this other song.
Yeah. Those are cool, like little Easter egg like kind of mechanics that I usually like, that sort of thing. But yeah, like they feel like they have a lot of potential to like be a more interesting part of the game, but it doesn't explain them to you at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of part of why I like them.
Yeah.
Because you can easily miss the Scarecrow Song and beat the game and not know that it was even a thing.
You can get the Scarecrow Song and then have no idea how to use it actively try to use it and never figure it out.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that is... It could be better signaled, I agree. But I like that it is entirely optional.
You could use, like, different colors. Like, Navi could turn different colors.
Navi could sure turn different colors. Because Navi has 3 colors at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, like, that off-white, like, bluish color.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow and green and red or whatever. And it's mostly just to indicate what she's doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, there are so many other colors. To indicate, like blue for the Song of Time, which has that nice blue effect and makes blue blocks. It could be cool.
Yeah. But yeah, to go back to the ocarina.
Oh, yes.
I really like the ocarina. Like, there have been other games that have been, like, kind of like Zelda, and as you've said, like, it's the grandfather of, like, 3D adventure game design.
Mm-hmm.
But it still stands out as a unique thing to me. Like, I don't feel like I've ever seen another game, like, try and implement, like, a musical instrument as a puzzle-solving element in the way that this does. But I do agree, it is a little, like, tedious over the course of the game, and not quite... Like, if it was smoother, like, I'd love to see an iteration. Like, I'd like to see them bring back music as a more central theme. Because, like, a lot of the games have had instruments, but they feel like they're an afterthought or like a thing we have to include because Zelda.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'd like to see like another game like try and integrate music as much as this one does, or like see like an indie game try it. And maybe that's out there and I haven't heard of it, but
yeah,
it's just something I feel like deserves another chance. But because of the way Nintendo does Zelda, I feel like it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think there's... I like the way the ocarina is implemented. I also want to at least call out that I do like the way that the Wind Waker works as well, as more of a pared down version of the ocarina. And by that I mean it has fewer notes.
Well, you're just conducting. You're not really playing an instrument.
Yeah, but it functions in essentially the same way.
Kinda.
But, like, you use it constantly, and that, I think, is the problem in Wind Waker, is that you're using the Wind Waker just to move around the overworld.
Yeah, it just changes the wind direction.
Yeah, and which means that you have to pull it out all the time.
Yeah.
And that gets a little bit, like... That's more irritating to me than how often I had to play Zelda's Lullaby in this game. Like Majora's Mask even does it worse than this game because of the Elegy of Emptiness fucking temple.
You have to play it all the time.
You gotta play it like 50 times. It's like, that's not really a fun thing to do.
Yeah, like, but like seeing things like a version of like Zelda's Lullaby or the Song of Time, where you can use them in dungeons. Like you notice a thing in the environment and play the song. Like something like that was like a little bit more seamless to actually do, and that was less obvious, like just clearly signposted with like a Triforce on the ground. I think could be really cool to like, and could even lead to like cool emergent gameplay style things. Yeah, like I pulled out the ocarina in this place and played this song and like blank happened. Like I just feel like it could be kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I agree.
If used in that kind of way.
Yeah, I'm arguing that I think Ocarina does the musical instrument thing probably best in the series.
Oh, yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
It's because it's like a core part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Whereas,
it's in the
like,
logo.
Yes, it's in the title.
Yeah.
But I agree that, yeah, it could be done better and it could be iterated on in a way that made it more interesting. I'm sure there's something out there. Because, like, you could easily replace Ocarina with Magic Spell and get the same mechanical effect. Yeah. But it's the musical aspect of it that makes
like,
it unique
playing
and cool.
different songs. Yeah, like, yeah, the presentation of it.
I want to give people what they came here for. The content that they will hear nowhere else. And that is, man, did a lot of these dungeons... have a lot of really dumb rooms in them that sometimes you had to use the ocarina to get to. Mm-hmm. That's my segue. How did you like it? Not good?
Do we want to take a break and then come back and talk about dungeons?
Parched. Yeah, let's take a break.
All right. After the break.
After the break. Welcome back. The Ocarina of Time, more like the Ocarina of Time consuming. Let's talk about dungeons. I think we've already said sort of our piece on the very first dungeon in the game. Though, when we're gonna talk,
Have we?
Yeah, because like the big thing about that dungeon.
Oh, you meant the Deku Tree.
Yeah, the Deku Tree.
Okay. I for some reason thought you meant the Forest Temple.
Oh, no.
For no reason at all.
It's the first. It's in the real game. Once you get past the baby Link part.
We have definitely set our piece on the Great Deku Tree.
Yeah. But if we're going to talk about dungeons, I do want to at least make a mention so that if you're just listening to this part of it, that I think the Deku Tree is fantastic. I'm almost sad that I've played Ocarina of Time and don't get to then use this idea in like a Dungeons and Dragons game or something, because the jumping from a high platform to break the web is incredible. It's a really good idea, and I wish that more of the game focused on stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it makes that first dungeon like a great vertical slice of the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives you a taste of what you need to be ready for.
Yeah, like it feels substantial, even though it's actually pretty easy at the end of the day. And
you could make an argument that it is sort of an extension of what made dungeons special in other Zelda games, where they sort of had a central theme, and not less so in like The Legend of Zelda,
but like A Link to the Past.
Yeah, when you think of A Link to the Past, you can think of the dungeons that have these overarching themes that you have to play around. And one of my personal favorite dungeons in the whole series comes from a 2D game, which is the dungeon in A Link Between Worlds, where you have to knock out the pillars, and it brings like the dungeon
Eagle's Tower,
yeah,
or something like that.
And there's a similar dungeon in
Link's Awakening.
Yeah,
you have to break the pillar with the ball.
Yep, and also a similar dungeon in Majora, where you have to use the hammer to knock the pillar down. That one is an incredibly light version of this puzzle.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm always looking for. And why I think the Water Temple, well, as much as I don't really like the Water Temple, I like the theming of the Water Temple, and I like the idea that you have to get your head around before you can get through it.
Yeah. Do we want to tackle these in order or talk more generally?
I always find it like a little bit boring when we talk about something like just one after another.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be some of these that I don't have a ton to say on.
Sure. But I guess then I would just say about the Water Temple, playing it now, you know, like after having played the game before, and the fact that you can use the boots easily now, and also one of the bigger things that tripped me up about the Water Temple the first time I played the game was in the central pillar, when you're inside of it and you move the water up, it didn't show you that it made a hole at the bottom.
Right.
And it took me 1,000 years to find that, so I got stuck for a really long time. And it fixed that too. So with those two things out of the way, like, it might be my favorite in the game. Like, I actually think it's pretty good. And like you're saying, like it has like a central, like, you have to think about the whole layout of the dungeon sort of thing, which I'm also fond of.
Yeah, it's like that bigger picture stuff that really brings the like the whole dungeon. It brings the dungeon together like a fucking area rug in a Coen Brothers movie. It's like the Water Temple exceeds at this because it is so heavily entwined with the mechanics, in a way that a lot of times the theming is more of an aesthetic thing. Like the Fire Temple is the Fire Temple because it is in the crater of a volcano, but all that really amounts to is you having to wear a different colored tunic.
Yeah.
And, like, it looks cool. Like, I think the Fire Temple and the Dodongo's Cavern both have, like, a nice, that molten aesthetic that plays well on an N64 game because you don't have to worry about detail so much as giving an impression of something. And it works super well for that. But it's just not that unique of a thing.
No, yeah. I think it's the easiest one in the game.
Fire Temple?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, you're right. You could swap out all of the textures for different ones, and you would never know that it was supposed to be the Fire Temple.
Yeah, because your items, like the central items in those two, are bombs, which is something that you're going to be using constantly.
And the hammer.
And the hammer, which is not fire related. It's related to the Goron, is how they sort of tie it in.
Yeah, that's the one that feels the most like it is just puzzle rooms stitched together.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people like to joke on the the Arm and Hammer baking soda.
Ball and chain.
The ball and chain from Twilight Princess. The Megaton Hammer is a good idea that is executed in the goofiest way, where it's like this hammer and it deals double the damage of the Master Sword when you use it, and it will smash big rocks and move pillars, but you just sort of like walk around with it like it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's just no sense of weight to the Megaton Hammer, and it makes me a little sad to use it because of that. But I mean, once again, kind of a minor complaint. To go back to the Water Temple, and this is what I was talking about before, is I feel like this game has there's an epidemic in this game of the problem that I've described 1,000 times, so apologies to long-term listeners, where a puzzle is difficult to solve and then also difficult to execute on, where it gets frustrating when you know what you're supposed to do, but then have to take a bunch of steps to get there. And
or it's hard to just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You have to, like, repeat. The Water Temple's especially bad, because if you fuck something up, like me, not realizing that I hadn't gone into this one area with the water all the way down. There's, like, a part where you have to raise the water level, then swim.
Yeah, and you have to go down and up.
And then once you get the long shot, you can shoot over across the little teeth gap. And I just had gone in there and just assumed that I had done everything in the room. And when I realized that that's what I had to do, I then had to go through the whole dungeon again, play fucking Zelda's Lullaby a bunch of times to get the water level to the right level so that I could then get back over there. But then, this is the catastrophe that I'm going to call out in a couple of different dungeons. You get through the door at the top once you get the long shot and raise the dragon head and shoot over and walk over into the next room. And then there's just like another dungeon. It's like a whole area where you like go in, you have to push a block around in a circle and then climb up a thing. And then there's this stupid incline with 3 spike pucks on it. And it's, why is that there? Why is any of that there? It's so unnecessary and just makes the dungeon longer and adds 2 of the more, like, irritatingly boring parts to it. Where, like, the pushing the block is especially egregious to me because it just makes you run in a circle for a while in order to just move a block slightly over to one side.
Yeah. I also, like... You described it as opening the door and it being like there's a whole other mini dungeon there. I kind of totally...
It's like 2 rooms.
I know. I totally pick up on what you mean, though, because like I remembered getting through there and then just the ramp and the boss, and not the other 2 rooms. So it does feel like kind of tacked on. And in this playthrough, I got to the ramp and thought like you had to put the iron boots on to walk up it, which is you just walk up it. But like for some reason really thought you were supposed to use the boots and was like, what am I forgetting? Like, I almost just looked it up before I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me try just walking up it.
And you have to go on one of the sides, even though the middle has
you just have to time it so you don't get hit by a death puck.
Yeah. But as far as I can tell, it's impossible to time it correctly if you try and go up the middle. And I was trying to go up the middle because it has like a little pathway there.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't feel like I tried to go up the middle. I
No,
must have that latent
smart.
memory of having to go up the side.
Yeah. There's also that room that... What are those enemies called? Tektites? The ones, like the water skimmers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The water ones might have a different name,
Sure.
but yeah.
Oh, yeah, because the Tektites are the ones that
The
jump.
red jumpy ones.
Yeah. But that whole room is like, what is even... It's like... It's a room that has like a perception of a threat, but it's not really there.
It's got N64-itis, where it really feels like whatever they imagined does not come through with what they were able to make.
They're like, it's a room with some water. It's
got some suction.
Yeah, a couple of whirlpools and
yeah.
boulders that roll. It's like there's so much going on, but all you have to do is just swim to the other side. So there's no challenge. It's really weird.
No, there's like a billion enemies, so I think it's supposed to be swim across and risk getting hit by all the enemies, or iron boots underneath and risk getting hit by the rocks and sucked in the whirlpool.
Sure.
But it's just really easy to navigate.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre, like, decision to put that stuff there. And they do it, like, a weird amount, in my opinion. I think that there are multiple dungeons that have, like, just, like, this extra little room that you have to do to complete the dungeon, and it's so... They feel pointless. When you think of the dungeon in the future, this won't be what you think about.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like them feeling out the design.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot more refined now. But yeah, it's like, I can almost just imagine them designing it and feeling like, well, if we put the boss right here, like, people won't be satisfied. Like, we need like a little bit extra. In reality, we would have been totally satisfied.
Yes.
Yeah, but it does. You feel some of that, like, experimentation in this game.
Yeah.
With the formatting and shit.
I want to spend a little bit of time talking about bosses sort of like on their own, but I will say right as a preview, I don't know how satisfied I would be at any point after fighting the boss of the Water Temple. So
yeah,
but yeah, so surprisingly, despite its notoriety, I think Water Temple does constitute a highlight.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think my previous favorite was always the Forest Temple.
Mm-hmm.
It stands out in my mind a lot because, like, getting to it is, like, a whole thing, and, like, having to get the hook shot and the fact that, like, Saria is connected to it. Like, it feels like it has a lot of build-up.
Yeah.
At least as much as you can get, like, in this game, given its age. But, yeah, and it's, like, in an abandoned castle with, like, spooky music, and there's, like, pose in it and stuff. Like, it just really stands out, and it's actually one of the harder ones.
Yeah, that's what I was going to call out, is that the Forest Temple was the hardest one for me.
Yeah, like, it always gets me, like, every time I play it, like, I always forget something. So yeah, but it's not too hard. Like, I think it's actually like I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. I might say that's my favorite. But, like, it's that or the Water Temple, I think.
Yeah. Forest Temple, and there are a few dungeons that I may or may not remember all of them when we're talking now. So, like, if you have an example, hey, drop it in the comments section. But there are a few dungeons that have this neat design that things sort of loop back on each other in an interesting way, where the Forest Temple feels really sort of compact, because you're going down these side rooms, and then they usually have an entrance and an exit that both lead into the central zone, which helps you, one, gauge your progress, because the fire lights up each time that you defeat one of the pose, and also keeps them feeling separate enough that it feels like different challenges. And I really like that about the Forest Temple. I felt like there were some zones that in it
kind of feels like a pretzel in my mind.
It's kind of got pretzel
design.
It
goes out and in. And it's also got those twisty gravity hallways.
Which are always cool.
Yeah, which, like we were talking about earlier, would have been cool if those would have affected larger parts of the dungeon.
Yeah.
But, you know, N64 and all that.
Yeah, if that was the theme of the dungeon, where, like, you, depending on what state the two twisty hallways were in, the whole dungeon sort of, like,
you break it in two halves, like...
Right.
One twisty hallway affects, the right half, and the other affects the left half. That would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been, like, the way to take it above and beyond.
Yeah.
But it is still cool the way that it is. I've always loved Floor Masters as an enemy type.
Oh yeah, they're very cool. It's lame that Navi always warns you about them.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the music cues, like, I think are good enough that you don't need it. At least maybe the first time is fair, but...
Yeah, give it as an introduction to the enemy,
yeah.
But then afterward you can just let the player stumble into it.
Mm-hmm.
The punishment to someone like me is pretty harsh of having to walk back.
Yeah.
But it's not realistically that harsh.
No.
So I don't think that it warrants like a warning every time that you go into the room.
Yeah. We mentioned it. I think we both mentioned it, but the Poe sisters, I think as they're called, are also like just a cool set piece to the dungeon that make it memorable. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of like that, like as we were saying, like narrative, and the way this game does it is more like environmental and like experience based rather than like a bunch of story.
Right.
And this has a lot of that, like propping it up.
Yeah. It does. It makes the Forest Temple stand out in that way. It's a good one. I also like that it has the mini boss, while being a little bit easy, is a memorable one. The Poes.
Yeah.
And obviously, Phantom Ganon is like a series classic at this point as well.
Yeah, if the whole like playing tennis thing wasn't so rote at this point, it would be a highlight of the game, like that boss fight, I think.
For sure. Also, I'm sorry, but brief detour back to the Water Temple.
Oh, sure.
Because I totally forgot to mention Dark Link.
Oh, yeah, I was saving it for the boss discussion. Okay. I was gonna bring it up, but you mentioned... I want to have a whole thing about bosses.
Oh, right. Well, I meant, like, the bosses. They give you a heart piece.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about Dark Link.
I'm gonna talk about Dark Link because I have a question.
Yes.
Because I feel like an idiot. Is there a strategy to beating Dark Link? Because I just literally mashed the B button and won eventually. It just took a long time.
So my problem... So I have a whole thing about Dark Link. Okay. Dark Link is infamously hard because anytime you go to hit him, he like just kind of jumps on top of your sword and hits you instead.
Right.
And... there is a way to actually just properly fight him, but it's really hard to figure out, and the fact that if you lose to him, you have to go back to the beginning of the dungeon with 3 hearts, because he doesn't take that long to get back to, but you have to take a detour to refill all your hearts by smashing a bunch of pots and stuff. So that's the part that's really annoying, is that you can't really experiment without being punished too hard. But yeah, and like the pots outside the boss room drop magic, and Din's Fire is good against him, but like you only got so much magic. But the way to actually fight him is that you hold up your shield and block, and as soon as he hits you, you hit the attack button, and that'll give you just enough time to hit him, but the window is really tight. So you just have to wait for him to hit your shield and immediately attack back, and you'll be able to hit him. And I looked this up this time because like I always have trouble with it because it is hard.
Right.
I know. Yeah, Din's Fire, and I know people say the hammer can work against him, but I think they may have like patched that out in the 3DS version because I couldn't get it to work. But I thought I had memories of it working. But so yeah, there is a way to fight him, but it's super unclear and hard to figure out.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that I was not being dense.
Yeah, no, you're not at all. There's tons of discussion about this online. But when I did fight him that way, after I learned the way to actually just hit him, like I took like 1 heart of damage because I messed it up, like the timing, and like that was it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't find him... I mean, he did damage me. I don't think that he ever, like, put me into use a fairy range, meaning killed me. But I did just, like, lock onto him, and then just, like... I apologize already for the audio here, but just, like... like, just mashed on the B button, And as long as you're locked on and you don't do the thrust move, he won't jump on top of your sword. He'll just, like, block it. And eventually he'll try to attack and you hit him instead. So I ended up taking a bunch of damage just from never holding the shield up and just mashing the attack button. But it didn't. It worked eventually. It just took a long-ass time.
Yeah, I did learn a fun fact about that fight is that he will have the exact amount of health that you do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, no matter... Like, so if you're doing a no-heart run, he will only have 3 hearts.
That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And this is so unrelated to dungeons.
But yeah, it feels like, before you say your thing, I'm going to let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the greatest temples in Ocarina of Time. I just feel like it really fails to capitalize on the idea. Like, the sword fighting mechanics are too simple to, like, have, like, a cool one-on-one sword duel. And then, like, the way, that they've tried to compensate for that just feels cheap and hard to puzzle out.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't
signal anything.
Right. And even Navi's, like, tip on it is just like...
Confront yourself.
I was like, oh, okay. Because myself cannot jump on a sword and then do a sweet, like, kick at a face. That's not what I do. Yeah, no, I agree on all that, which is good. All I was going to say is I like that this game gives you the option to skip the heart container at the end of the level. It's weird. I feel like in a lot of games they would force you to take the upgrade.
Yeah, Nintendo would now.
Yeah.
I feel like.
So it's nice that if you are like somebody who wants to do a challenge run, you can skip all the heart containers and it won't even affect anything. Yada yada.
I always remember quite liking the Shadow Temple. I like the boat ride, even though it's mostly just because it's cool. Not really mechanically or anything. But like I found like playing through it this time, it's actually pretty easy as well. But it has like one like chest hidden by it. Like you have to use the lens of truth to see. It's like you have to like it's like a pile of dirt or whatever
that
in the
you
corner.
have to bomb?
You have to bomb, and then on top of that you have to use the lens of truth to even see the chest. And like I feel like that's pretty cheap.
Was that not in the
they do something like that,
okay,
but like it definitely in the Shadow Temple proper there's a small key hidden that way. And I remember getting stuck on that for like ever the first time I played the game.
Spoilers for my opinion, but the Shadow Temple ends up, to me, being sort of like a very unmemorable temple. It feels like a real hodgepodge and doesn't have a strong aesthetic design, in my opinion anyway. Is the Shadow Temple the one where you have to go down awful Skullchilla hallway?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
That part does suck.
Because every time you fall off of the slippery fall off narrow guillotine alley, you have to start back at the top of awful Skullchilla hallway.
I don't know that I've ever fallen off of
that. God, I fell off so many times.
If we're talking about the same part.
Well, you go down, so awful Skullchilla hallway.
Right, there's
is
like
the downward
ramps.
sloping. Yeah. And then there's the long, narrow
with the guillotines. Yeah, I don't think I've literally ever fallen off of that.
You were more sure-footed than I.
Were you not using the hover boots?
Where? Wait, for the guillotine part?
Yeah, to just run across the gaps.
Oh, fuck no. I jumped that shit every time. I used the hover boots, like, in the 4 places it was necessary, and then jumped every other time.
It might just be a personal thing, and another thing that's, like, unique to Ocarina. But, like, I think because of that, like, I just find them to be really cool. Because, I don't know, like, there's something, and they just have, like, wings on them. Like, there's something about them that's, like, really cartoony, almost. I don't know. I just think that they're amusing.
The item description for them even begins like strange boots.
Yeah.
I was like, they sure are.
They almost feel like they're pulled out of another game or something. Like there's just something weird about them, and I love them.
I also like their design, and I like when they are necessary.
Yeah, the feather boots of sneaking.
Yes, but to me, it always feels like they are for puzzles, and a lot of the time I'd just say, like, I can just jump over that gap, so I would do it. Obviously, I didn't even think to use it in the guillotine part, so they probably would have made that easier and made me have to run down terrible Skullchilla highway. Well, I'm going to keep changing the name as many times as I can in order to get back to where I was before, which then aids in the me falling off because I'm now rushing to try and get back there. It's like, okay, can I just make the Stealthos fall off the cliff, and then I fall off the cliff like an idiot because I was trying to, like, push him over.
Sure.
But I didn't like that part of it. But yeah, I don't know. What were we talking about with the fucking shadows?
I just brought it up as probably the one. I've kind of been bringing them up in order of how much I like them.
Sure, yeah.
And there's something about the Shadow Temple I just really enjoy. Like, I like, and it's not really mechanically so much. I found out on this playthrough because I found it to be pretty easy. But like, I like that, like, it's just in Kakariko Village. Like, the fact that it's, like, just buried under Hyrule. Like, there's, like, even, like, a plaque that's, like, here it lies Hyrule's dark history or something like that.
Right.
Like, the implication of that is weird and cool. And the fact that there's, like, a river of sticks with a weird boat down there almost kind of makes it feel like underworld mythology kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just, I find it to just be, like, the way it's designed, I feel like it feels a little out of left field for a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
For it to, like, lean into, like, the guillotines and the... Like, it implies, like, people were tortured down there. Like, I just find that all to be really memorable.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the other of the two places that I use the Scarecrow Song, though. Also, when you get off the boat, you can Scarecrow on a ledge. Oh,
God.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I feel like every time I get there, I'm like, how the fuck do you get up there?
Mm-hmm. Maybe... the reward for getting up there is, like, 5 bombs. So it's, like, not worth it.
Yeah.
But you can do it.
Like, every time I stop and look at it, I'm like, how the fuck do you get up there? Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I leave.
Well, I also want to call out, and this is just like old games versus new games.
Sure.
I feel like if a new game had this exact same dungeon in it, if you did the Scarecrow thing, got up there, and then could jump to the other side of the river early and knock over the thing, they would just let you get past that room that you have to get, but there's a lock on the door, so you have to go back and go into the thing to get it. It would have been nice to cut out, just because it's like a 2-minute puzzle that you would have missed, but
yeah, it's definitely one of the most linear, maybe the most linear dungeon in the game.
And the boat being a big set piece of it kind of helps with that.
Yeah.
Because you can't do a lot where you have to take a boat.
Bombing the statue is also cool.
Yeah. I agree with that too. Yeah, it's not a bad dungeon.
No, I just
definitely not.
Yeah, it's definitely more just like the aesthetic and theme of it for me.
Hardest boss in the game, in my opinion, though.
Bongo Bongo.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about my favorite dungeon then.
The Spirit Temple.
In the Spirit Temple. Love the Spirit Temple. Love the look of the Spirit Temple.
Yeah, very cool. Big statue.
Big statue. It's very like 90s The Mummy. Like the traps in an old, or like Indiana Jones kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's mostly it's a dungeon that uses a ton of your other items as parts, especially because you get to go in both as a kid and adult. So you get to use other things, and there's overlap in a cool way where if you are in the kid part, you can still do some of the stuff in the adult part. Like, you can get the dungeon map before coming back.
Yeah, because it connects with the statue room.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that there is this sense of like, how deep can I get into this before going back and switching? And they give you the song, the whatever, that's the one you use the least, so it's the hardest to remember. Yeah, but they give it to you right there, so that, like, right at the entrance of the temple, so when you go back to get it to adult Link and then come back, you're just right back there, like, instantly. There's no, like, waiting around. And not a whole lot of, like, foot travel, which makes it it feels more like a dungeon mechanic of switching than it does feel like leaving the dungeon.
Yeah, that one also has a lot of build up to get to it, because you have to do the whole like Gerudo Fortress and the getting through the desert to get there.
That's why I liked it, I think, as my favorite, because it meant I wasn't doing the stealth section anymore.
I like the dungeon, but it felt just so easy this time. Like it just kind of felt like I walked through it.
Sure.
And it almost felt like it was missing rooms. Like I think it might have like significantly more added to it in the Master Quest version. And I was thinking of that because I've played Master Quest like twice maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I found it to be kind of disappointingly short.
Sure.
But no, I like a lot that's going on. Like the central statue room is very cool and totally the highlight. And I like the part like towards the end of the adult part where you like lower the thing in the middle to make the light shine on the face of the statue.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That one is one of the instances where Navi kind of like dumps on the possible
Yeah, it feels like it's there's a little bit of missed potential. Like it's the only dungeon, so it does get kudos for this. Like being the only dungeon you have to do as the adult and the child. Yeah. But there's the interplay is like almost non-existent. It would have been cooler if you did have to crisscross between sides to like do different things.
Yeah. You could debate that in the inside of the well and the Shadow Temple are kind of one dungeon that you use both sides of.
Yeah. I like the way that those are broken up though. Like there's something about like having to like you drain the water in the well and then you go down as adult Link and see that it's blocked, then you have to go to the past when it's open. I don't know. Yeah, there's something about the way that those are separated, I think, makes it better. Yeah. They feel like their own two different things. So that you don't have the expectation that they will interact.
It's one of those things where if you like it better one way or the other, you can kind of just think of it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
There is also like the fact that in the Spirit Temple, it's very clearly telegraphed that you're supposed to do it as an adult once you get to that point. And that does sort of detract from it as being like a mechanic or whatever.
Yeah, it might as well just have a sign there at the beginning that's like, you have to do one half of this as a child and then the other half as an adult.
Yep. But you have to get there as an adult, which does make having to go back as a child like makes you. It's like something you do have to think about it. For a minute,
yeah. It is unexpected. And it's one of the only spots where you get like main story progression in the child timeline, because you go back and then the sage gets kidnapped in the past.
Right. Who they do have to introduce right there, but that's not.
I think that kind of works. Like it makes her stand out, I think, from the others.
I agree. I know that her name is Nobura.
Yeah. And
I would not have remembered that if it wasn't a memorable character, because it's kind of a long name. But, like, I don't know, all of the other sages are characters that you've sort of, like, interacted with.
Yeah.
And it does make her stand out. I guess if you only have one like this.
Yeah, the exception. Because I do think that interacting them with as a child and then meeting them again as the adult, like, adds something. Like, you have a relationship with them. And, like, the fact that they talk to you in a more friendly way, like, makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, it does. I think it adds a little layer there that is interesting. And I think, God, I'm gonna blank on her name right now. Princess Ruto. Yeah, like the whole like engagement thing. While it is like a pretty simple joke, I always find it to be pretty funny.
Yeah, and I think that works.
Yeah, and it's like cute when you meet her as like an adult and she's still like, hey, I'm holding you to this. Like that's like. I don't know if the tone is supposed to be that, like, she's obviously teasing him because, like, what they're dealing with now is so crazy, and obviously they're not worried about that, and that happened when they were kids and everything. But, like, yeah, I just like how she, like, acts like she's serious about it. I just think it's cute.
Yeah, I that's how I read it, personally. And it works so much better than everyone else wanting to fuck Link also.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like it was great with her, and then it was ruined by everyone else. Like, even, like, fucking, the name I said
Noboru?
a second ago. Yeah, Noboru.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
She said you would have, if I would have known, you would have grown up to be so handsome.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Like, this is the last
That's
save.
Rudo's thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're really, like, fucking getting in on that, on the, on her steez.
Yeah, like, I just feel like it could come off as creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, especially playing it now is, like, kind of weird. But I think it works. Like, I think it plays as a joke well.
Yeah. Princess Rudo, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? It's the spooky sounds of In the Well. I would talk about In the Well.
Yeah.
But only enough to say, because I think that a lot of what makes the well cool is what makes the Shadow Temple cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the part in the well that stands out to everyone who's ever played this game is the Dead Hand, which is the boss of this like mini dungeon, or the mini boss of the macro dungeon, if you want to lump them both together. And I want to basically expand this to cover the whole game to say that they did an incredible job with the 64 bits of video memory that they had to work with, of making a lot of genuinely very creepy enemies. And yes, the Dead Hand definitely stands out because of its like just unapologetically gross form.
Yeah, those textures go a long way. I feel like I always hone in on this, but like like fleshy, bloody, weird textures like that are always like kind of creepy.
Yeah, and it is successfully creepy. But then also like the Redeads and their textures are pretty bad, and to me look like dog shit, literally and figuratively. But the animation sells them. Like, I think they look really good when they latch onto you. It's horrible. Gibdos don't get the same pass because they're just a mummy who moves in the same way as a Redead. And then like the P-hats, which I don't know if that's what they're called in this game. The big thing in Hyrule Field that flies.
Oh, that thing
is terrifying in like a kaiju kind of way.
Yeah.
Because it's just so large. They do a really good job, I think, with making things seem threatening and then sometimes just downright unsettling. And I think it's something that the series sort of like wants to keep doing. Like, you look forward to Majora and to Twilight Princess.
Wind Waker.
Even
though it's a cute game. Redads are still pretty scary in that.
Yeah. It's like they want to make sure there's like that little element of horror, because I think it's really integral to like the fantasy adventure.
Yeah. The adversity. No, yeah, hard agree. You even get some of that in like the NPC designs and stuff, like places that aren't supposed to be creepy can be, and it definitely is part of the flavor.
Fucking angry windmill guy. He looks kind of creepy to me.
Yeah,
I would not want to hang out with him. Other than that, Bottom of the Well, I think, has sort of the same problems as a lot of the dungeons do, where it has this one overarching mechanic that makes you redo huge portions of the dungeon.
Yeah, I had some friction with it this time, because like you can get the Lens of Truth really early, but like I just didn't notice that little
little hole.
The little hole in that area, because I drained the water like immediately, and then even got the chest in the spot in front of the way you came in and just didn't notice the fucking other hole in the ground. But so I did a lot of it without the Lens of Truth, which led to a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
But I still think it's my favorite Child Link dungeon, though, because like I like that it focuses around the Lens of Truth as a mechanic, and it has all of the creepy stuff. And going down there as Child Link, I think adds something to it too. Like it once again, kind of like the Shadow Temple itself, like the aesthetics and theming go a long way, but even more so, I think, in the Bottom of the Well than the dungeon proper for me.
Yeah.
Frustration and all. Like, it's still a really cool dungeon, I think.
Yeah. But on the other hand of frustration, the
Fuck it.
No, I still don't hate that dungeon. What I do hate is Jabba Jabba's belly,
Oh yeah.
which is my least favorite Child Link dungeon.
Yeah, it's that thing that you say anytime you replay a game you really like. There's that one part you're like, oh no, I don't want to replay that. For me, that's Jabu Jabu every time.
Yeah. It is, and it's not even the carrying Princess Ruto part that sucks so bad. I mean, that is part of why it sucks so bad.
It's not that. She's kind of more like an item that you just kind of throw around.
Yeah.
So she's not so bad.
No. But the just needless walking around and invulnerable enemies is just incredibly frustrating to deal
like
with.
the electricity and stuff. Like, it is actually pretty punishing.
Yeah. It deals a lot of damage. Also makes you just stand still for a period of time while it goes like,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't dig it, and I really like it aesthetically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just ends up, the boss is a nothing that's mixed with a puzzle that's kind of a nothing.
Yeah.
Where you just throw a boomerang at some colored tubes.
Yep. No. 10 out of 10 for a, like, concept for a dungeon. Like, inside of a big whale thing. Whatever, Jabu Jabu is supposed to be fish deity.
Yeah. I even like the fact that the buttons are these, like, weird, fleshy pustules that, like, seem like it would make sense as, like, a thing that when you press down on, it reflexively opens, like, a wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's good visually, and, like, it makes sense. But just no part of it is any good. Also, I hate the fact that you climb so slowly, and if you fuck up in the bottom part where Ruto spawns, you have to climb up the wall, and then just drop down one of the, like, 8 holes there. And, like, yeah, I get that there's an obvious tell which one you're supposed to drop down because it had a thing in it. But I'm not going to remember that. Yeah, it has a lot of the problems that though it does not have the useless dungeon addendum. Once you solve the most of it, you just go straight into the boss room and fight the boss. So it gets a pass for me for that.
So I guess, and then also to Dongo's Cavern. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. I actually like. Well, okay, yeah, I forgot we're talking about bosses later. I like the boss in Dodongo.
But yeah, I kind of want to talk about, like, a few other, like, ancillary things. How do you feel about the magic? You just, like, the magic part in general, that it's tied to the spin attack, and then also, like, Din's Fire, Faror's Wind, and Niru's Love, and etc.
I like that they have a bunch of items that have a shared resource meter. But I feel like it was never limiting enough to matter until the fight with Ganon. Like, that's the only time that I ran out of magic, and they just litter the bottom of the arena with pots to refill your mana. And otherwise I never noticed so much, because I was never tempted really to use, like, a fire arrow over a regular arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never use a spin attack. I never use Niru's Love. I never use Faror's Wind. Even though I feel like the Forest Temple would have been an excellent place to use Faror's Wind, I didn't think of it until I was, like, done with it.
Did you even have it yet?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
If you get it there or not. Because I didn't use it ever. So
yeah.
Din's Fire was the only thing that really used magic for me up until you get light arrows and are forced to use them in a few situations. I don't know. It's not my favorite. I feel like magic has been a big failure in every Zelda game because they keep adding a meter that does nothing.
No, yeah, that's why I brought it up. Like, I think the last main series game it appeared in was Wind Waker. Like, they've completely dropped it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about it, because on one hand, yeah, like, they never really did much with it, But I feel like there's potential there. Like, I'd like to see them try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the it is a little bit annoying to manage, like picking up all the pots. Like I did use fire arrows a decent amount, but yeah, I don't know exactly. I just feel like it's something that I'd like them to do again and see what happens.
Yeah, I would like. I think take a page out of more modern game design. Like, look at something like a Hollow Knight that. I mean, I think kind of by just the state of being a video game has itself some relation to Zelda in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Like, make it so that the magic isn't a resource that you pick up from pots. Have it be something that you regenerate by attacking or by doing some other thing. Just to encourage you to use it more often. Like, you know that you always have a way to get it back. And I think you could do something cool with it. Because, like, yeah, Nehru's Love seems like it would be a cool thing to use on occasion. Like, allow for some riskier strategies, especially with the touchscreen, where you can, like, quickly activate it and deactivate it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's, there's just, you just never put it on your hotbar because there's no reason to waste the magic when you might be forced to use a light arrow or something in the future.
The in A Link Between Worlds, you had the little purple bar that governed like all of your item usage, which I thought was like an interesting way to do it because like, it refilled slow to keep you from spamming stuff too much.
Right.
So yeah, and it also governed like the magic items and things like that. So,
yeah, it's more like a stamina bar.
Yeah, it just refills. So that's not a bad way to handle it. But no, yeah, I agree. Some kind of retooling, a more modern retooling, could be cool.
I'm surprised, and by surprised I mean I'm positive this exists, and just I don't know about it. There's got to be like a fan remake of Ocarina, right? That's just like a total conversion, changes the mechanics and shit.
I don't know. I feel like those kinds of mods are much more complicated and don't know if they exist.
Yeah. Before we... Oh, you said you had a few ancillary things. Let's go on.
Nothing too crazy, but I also wanted to just bring up gold Skullchillas as a collectible item because they seem like the sort of thing that you would like a lot. Your completionist nature. But I really like them. I find them really satisfying to collect. I like the rewards you get from them. I like that they make a noise, and it sounds kind of similar to the way you sound while you walk around, like your shield and your sword clank together.
Yeah.
So you might not notice them right away.
Yeah, I like them.
Just well implemented, I think.
I agree. I like them as a collectible. I don't like the ones that you have to like go catch bugs and then use them to dig them out of the ground. This... I'm gonna hit you with something that might surprise you, and then completely fucking go back to what you expect from me.
You got a flip flop.
I'm gonna flip flop a bit here. I did not treat this game in a completionist way.
I'm not surprised about that.
It was something I knew that if I did, I would never finish it in like a reasonable amount of time. But then I did end up with like 53 Skullchillas.
Yeah,
which seems like way more than I would have gotten if I was a different person not trying to finish the game. Because there would be moments where I would be like, I'm looking at Skullchilla and being like, I can get that. It's like, look at my total. I'm like, I'm not going to get the next reward by the end of the game, almost certainly. And could just skip this with no penalty. But it's like, but...
Yeah. I mean, that's about how many I got, so...
Okay, not bad, not bad. I did end up... I don't know what the reward for 50 is, because I think I cleared 50 with ones that were in Ganon's castle. But I got up to the, like, giant's wallet, which did nothing for me, because you stop spending rupees pretty quickly in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. They were cool. I do like talking to the big sad spider.
Once again, I think that theming is cool. I did want to call out that I thought that the pose kind of sucked though as a collectible in this. They wisely in Twilight Princess just combined the two, and they had the cursed guy in Castletown have you hunt down pose to break a curse. So they got the cool theming and just one collectible instead of a second one.
Yeah. That one I did get all of.
Wow.
Yeah, back in the day. In this game, did you know that you can drink pose?
That makes sense, although I never tried it.
I didn't know it would work. I didn't know what would happen. I was just trying to get rid of the Poe.
You.
I grabbed one and was just going on my merry way and didn't go back to take it to the Poe salesman, whatever the hell she is, and needed the bottle for something else, like the blue fire or whatever. And so I was like, can I just dump the Poe out? And he was like, pop, and then just drinks a ghost. And I was like, that's badass, but also why? I think it heals you, but I actually had full health and didn't know if that was the case.
That's kind of weird. I also wanted to, if you were done.
Yeah, no, I got nothing else on post.
Just wanted to bring up the fact that, like, Epona is optional. I think that's weird. Like, an interesting decision, but I like it, actually. That you actually have to work for her, and therefore will, like, actually remember to use her ever. Because, like, I think in Twilight Princess, she's just your horse.
Yep.
And even though that game is bigger and she has more utility, I feel like I never use her at all in that game. And in this one, I do sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I had to put in some effort for it. But yeah, that and there's some of like the other side quests. Like, did you get the Bigoron sword?
No, fuck no.
Okay, or do the mask side quest?
I did the Bigoron sword in my last playthrough. I did not do it this time because that trading quest, it just seemed like it would take a very long time to do.
It's not that bad.
I never did the mask quest in either playthrough, so I don't know what that's about.
I like both of them, but I think it has a little bit of that problem that we were talking about, where it's a little bit too obtuse or a little bit too hard to find. Like, nothing really signals to it.
Yeah,
because like you get the Keaton mask is the first one you get, and you give it to the one guy in Kakariko Village.
Who specifically asks for it.
Yeah, pretty obvious. But then after that, it's like, just fucking talk to everybody, dude. Like, the people you do give them to make sense, but, like, not in a way that you would ever think, oh, that guy.
Right.
With the exception of the Bunny Hood, which is the last one.
You the running man.
Yeah, you know you give that one to the running man. But,
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, I think that they're fun side quests, yeah, but they're just not very visible.
Yeah, I had the skull mask in my inventory till the end of the game.
Yeah, you give it to a skull kid in the Lost Woods.
I guess that makes sense. I tried to give it to the kid who's walking around looking like Dampy.
You were one step ahead.
Oh, shit.
After that, you get a Re-Dead mask, and you give it to him.
Of course, the Re-Dead mask. No, I did not know about any of that. I also still...
No, I didn't. I think like my first 2 or 3 playthroughs, I didn't do any of it, so...
I know I had the Pocket Cuckoo for the whole game and just never found where Malin was, or Talon.
He's in Kakariko Village, in one of the houses. He's just asleep on a bed.
Oh, word.
Yep.
So yeah, that quest was a non-starter for me. I knew that you were supposed to wake him up and he would give you like a blue one.
Yeah.
But I didn't find him, and so that quest went nowhere for me.
Yeah, it's yeah, I feel like it relies a little bit on that, like, and we've talked about this a bazillion times, but like that kind of older game mentality where they were kind of designed with that expectation that you're somebody younger who's gonna like have a bunch of free time to just spend on like talking to everyone, and
right.
Yeah, like you're just gonna, it's the one game you got this summer, and by God, you're gonna play it all summer, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think if I didn't have memory of playing the game before, this probably would have taken me all summer.
Yeah,
like now, I don't know if I had tried to like do all the stuff,
and it would probably be more enjoyable that way too.
Debatably, yeah.
But yeah, you want to talk about them bosses?
Let's do them. I didn't like most of them.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about most Zelda games, though. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I feel like there are a very few number of Zelda bosses that I think are like good bosses, and most of them are just like fine.
I think that
at best.
for me, it has a ton to do with the arena more than it does the boss.
Yeah.
Because that's what kind of makes it interesting. For the most part, you're going to be doing, as everybody makes fun of, especially in the Majora's Mask 3D remake where they added glowing eyeballs to bosses. You attack a glowing eyeball, and that's the way you beat it.
An obvious weak spot.
Yeah. So I get that, and I also get why the bosses aren't very appealing to a lot of people. But I think the bosses in Zelda games are puzzles mostly.
Yeah. I feel like most people do really like the bosses in Zelda games.
Okay. Aren't really appealing to some people, I think.
Okay,
probably, yeah.
There we go.
But yeah, I don't know. To me, I feel like I usually do, and because I'm not a boss fan,
Right.
And the fact that the Zelda bosses don't feel like bosses is probably why I generally like them.
Yeah.
This one had a few standouts. I think Phantom Ganon and the Ganondorf itself fight are not Ganon, but Ganondorf are both fun to play still to this day, and I like a couple others probably that aren't springing to mind right now. I like Volvagia.
Volvagia is very cool.
Yeah. I think that's a good
Even
boss.
though you just kind of smash him in the face with a hammer. Like, it's really satisfying to do.
Yeah, it's like it's fucking they build up this antagonist.
Yeah, the dragon.
Yeah. He's like the only boss in the game that gets this that isn't a Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Where they're like, they took all of my people and fucking put them in cages and are threatening to feed them to an ancient dragon. And I'm like, that's hardcore. And then you play whack-a-mole with the dragon, and it's kind of great, but also like it subverts how cool and scary the dragon seems like it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Fucking what's his name in Wind Waker, the dragon in that game.
Valoo.
Valoo is what you imagine in your head the dragon is going to look like this big, huge dragon. But it's just this like
it's more like a Chinese kind of style dragon.
Yeah, that just sort of is long and snaky. It's like one of the dragons from Breath of the Wild. Also. Yeah, but more ethereal. I don't know.
Yeah, and Bongo Bongo gets a little bit of setup as well because he like kidnaps Impa or whatever at the beginning and he's invisible,
right?
Which is a little bit of a build up, but
Bongo Bongo is just. I mean, I'm dumb, so like we'll just park that at the beginning of this conversation and take the keys and throw them in the woods. Because I'm going to live in the dumb zone for a while. It took me forever to think to use the Eye of Truth to look at him, and it's like literally the whole dungeon.
That is very funny.
Like the whole dungeon is using the Eye of Truth in the appropriate places.
Yeah.
And they show you him vanish into the shadow.
Yep, and he's, at the beginning of the dungeon, he's invisible. You can't see him.
But no, that wasn't in my fucking frame of mind for some reason. So it took me a long time to figure out how to damage him.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just the bouncing is irritating to me.
Yeah.
I like the boss. It's just the hardest one for me.
Yeah. It took me a try or two, I think, to get the timing down. Like, once I reacclimate, it's a boss that I feel like you have to kind of get into a groove for. So I sympathize with that. I always feel like Bongo Bongo's design is one that you would really love.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like the sort of thing, like, if you were fucking the art director of Ocarina of Time and the artist brought you the sketch of Bongo Bongo, you would be like, yes,
please,
A+, 5 gold stars.
He's like, I think you fight him on a big drum. I'm like, you stop digging, you hit gold.
Give this man a pay raise. Start modeling it immediately.
You're right, and it's part of the reason why I do like Bongo Bongo in the end, even though I'm a big dumb idiot. I want to give my dishonorable mention, least favorite boss, has nothing to do with how the boss plays necessarily or the design of the boss. It's just like the biggest void of missed potential, and that is Twin Rova.
I thought you were going to say the Water Temple one.
Oh, no. I also don't like the Water Temple
like
one.
Omolga or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's the squirrel Pokemon.
Oh, whatever.
They might have the same name.
It's something that has those syllable or those consonant sounds in it.
Yeah. Imoga, I will give a pass to because it's sort of an interesting arena.
Yeah.
But you don't ever need to use the middle platforms.
No, in fact, you want to stay out of it.
Yeah, and that part kind of sucks. I wish that you had more incentive to be there. I don't like the Twinrova fight because it's so obvious what you're supposed to do.
And it's really easy to do.
It's super easy to do, and it's hard to take damage. And then when they do their ultimate attack, where they form together and they shoot individual projectiles instead of laser beams, only, I think, at the very end, I think it's like the last one that you have to land, do they ever mix up what order they throw them in. So it's always just block 3 times, shoot the laser beam, jump over, hit him with a Megaton hammer, jump back. And you just do that a few times and you're done. And then it's just on the last one that they're like, ooh, throw fire one now. So you have to not block it so that your shield doesn't get depowered. They could have done so much with that concept alone. Like, have them throw, if they threw the laser beams at different times and, like, overlapped occasionally, would make that part more challenging. If they shot just always. I was expecting it from the beginning that they would go ice, fire, or, like, maybe it's random, ice, fire, ice,
I thought it was
fire.
random.
At least for me, for the first 3 attacks that I landed on it, it was just ice, fire.
Oh,
Like
they definitely didn't do that for me.
Oh, weird. I guess I take it back, and I just got extremely lucky.
Yeah, it definitely went back and forth.
Huh.
For me.
I don't know.
But yeah, that almost kind of feels a little bit like time crunchy to me. Like, I felt like I was saying earlier, like, the whole Spirit Temple feels a little short and easy to me, and the boss kind of feels that way too.
Yeah.
So that might just be total speculation on my baseless slander. But it kind of feels like maybe they were running out of a little time. Then you play the Song of Time.
Yeah.
To go back in 7 years to have more time to work on the game.
That's how they managed to get Majora out in a
Yeah.
year. They went back 7 years. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of... I like most of the other bosses, I think, are more on the less notable side. I like Dodongo because it is like... it is the most hectic fight in the game, in my opinion, because you're just like literally running away from a big rolling boulder for most of the fight.
I find the octopus to be a little bit more like that because of the spike circle
wall
in the middle. Except you're just chasing it instead of being chased by it.
Yeah. That one is also pretty hectic as well. That's a mini boss, though.
Yeah, they both just run in a circle around a damage pit.
Yeah. But I don't know. Something about it has always been really funny to me. And, like, just seeing Link just get just eating shit from Dodongo crashing into him is a funny time.
Yeah, there's, like, a spot in, like, the corners of each one where you can just stand and he just goes by you.
But, like, where's the fun in that?
I mean, you're not wrong. It does make it less interesting, but...
So you're talking about, then, the final boss? Ganondorf.
The dwarf himself.
The dwarf himself. Yeah, so we've already kind of talked about the lightning tennis game, and I remember being worse at this than I was my first time through. I don't know why. I think maybe I was playing with 3D on and it was fucking with my depth perception. I couldn't tell you.
Sure.
But I did just sort of like obliterate that. Like, he just never landed a hit on me this time, which was strange for me because I remember just dying in that fight. But it's still cool, and I love that he knocks out the ground. I wish that he would do it
more.
Yeah, because it would just make the fight a little more interesting. But I think it's genuinely cool in a way that I do like.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we already talked about how he gets rid of Navi for the fight. Very cool. Not too hard, but definitely memorable and fun.
Yeah, I felt like they probably felt like they couldn't make it too difficult because they knew they wanted to do the escape from the tower and then the Ganon fight at the end, which I'll give credit to the Ganon fight. I finished that fight with 3/4 of a heart left. It just took me a few times to get the pattern down of what I should be doing.
Right.
But it felt like I might actually have to use one of the 3 fairies I had with me.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah, I like you can actually fall down. Like, the actual, like, pillar, like the boss arena, is more than just the floor that you're fighting on. It's not really anything specific. I feel like that adds to the fight. It just makes it feel more, like, gives it more of a sense of place and make it feel less like a boss arena.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It feels like you have intruded on his inner sanctum.
Yeah.
Which he did not set up to have a tennis match in. I don't like that the pots respawn every time that you climb up the ladder pillar, but like that's
I didn't know that. But
yeah. So if you run out of light arrows, this probably took me longer than it took you because I was not jumping over to hit him. I was just using additional light arrows when he was on the ground, and so my magic would drain pretty quickly, and then I jump down into the pots, get my magic back, and climb back up. Only later did when I ran out of magic the first time, I found out that, I guess you could just run on over there, huh?
And hit him, yeah.
But yeah, I thought it worked really well. I think that if I was less dumb at the end, I would have liked it if the pots you had to use them more sparingly. But otherwise, yeah, I actually really loved the Ganondorf fight. Thought it was like a genuinely fun time. And then you run down the tower, which is less fun, but
I like it.
It's fine.
I think I find it really memorable. Once again, it's hard to like put it into words, but like I really do feel like it adds something, like the way it breaks up the fights, and you actually get to spend some time with Zelda, which you don't get to do in a lot of Zelda games.
This is true.
I don't know. Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. I do like that, like, you walk into a room and before you even notice that there are enemies in the room, Zelda has just put up a big light shield around herself and is like, I'll be here.
Yeah.
You stay out that way. So that was funny. But you do, I mean, it's not like I don't like the rundown. It's just like...
It could be more interesting.
Yeah, like you just ran up.
Yeah.
Why I run down now? Can I complain for 1 second about Iron Knuckle?
Yeah,
I think is the name of this enemy. Is a big armored guy with a giant axe, and they took he does a ton of damage, and they made the consideration of whenever you fight one in the Spirit Temple, at least, there's always a pillar nearby that he can break and give you hearts. But he's the easiest enemy in the whole game to fight. He's much easier to fight than Keese, the bat enemy that flies at you during all points of the game. Because you just don't go near him, and then you do a jump attack, and then you walk away again.
Yeah, you just jump away.
It's weird to me that they went through so much effort to make sure that, like, he wasn't too punishing when he is not in any way punishing.
Yeah, it's probably like a balancing concern. Like, they wanted him to do a ton of damage, so they felt like they couldn't make him like crazy difficult to fight.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
They probably also like underestimated people's ability to like as I said earlier, like they made certain decisions obviously because they wanted people to understand a 3D game.
Right.
Probably were a bit too concerned about that.
Yeah, it probably was harder at the time as well.
Yeah, like I remember them being hard like back in the day, like when I played it the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like one of those things though, like once you like understand how the enemies work, or they have like a defensive stance and a non-defensive stance, like it's pretty obvious and easy.
Yeah. You gotta fight those clams.
Yeah.
You get it down. You're like, oh, he's got this butt toward me. That's time to
His spike
shield.
butt.
Yeah. Anyway, so you make it to the bottom of that tower. That's just my brief detour. Mm-hmm. The combat in this game, overall, I think is such a good first attempt at 3D sword fight combat. And I can't say anything really to detract. Like, I don't think it is badly designed.
No, it's just pretty simple.
Yeah, it just ends up being really simple and involves a lot of just sort of like standing around a lot of the time. But the Ganon fight feels way more proactive, and I actually kind of like it because of it.
Oh, yeah. Overall, I think Ocarina of Time has the best final boss in the Zelda series. I think by like a country mile. Like, wow. the Ganon, the escape sequence, or Ganondorf escape sequence, monster Ganon.
Yeah,
I think is just like great. Like the no Navi versus Ganondorf, and then the no Master Sword versus Ganon.
Right.
Like, it's once again has like that memorable factor to me. The other games in the series, I think, focus too much on the sword fight thing.
Yeah.
And while they do have more complicated combat than this game, like the Zelda series has never had like good like sword combat as far as like an action game goes.
Yeah. There's not a lot of like, because of the game's emphasis on items and stuff, there's never been a lot of like real estate to use for different attacks.
And it feels like this game realizes that. It makes you use them on the boss.
And the other games sort of want to focus more on the dramatic factor.
Yeah.
I'm going to tentatively agree with you on this.
It's like, I really like the presentation of Wind Waker's, where you fight Ganondorf in like the sinking tower.
Yeah.
But it is kind of just a sword fight.
Sure is.
And like Twilight Princess tries to do this but bigger, and I think it ends up being considerably weaker in my opinion.
It also just takes a very long time.
It's not bad by any means. Like, I like Twilight Princess a lot. It just feels like this, but again.
Right. Well, that's kind of, I mean, that was the critical response to Twilight Princess, it was Ocarina of Time again.
I feel like they do it well in a lot of areas of the game, but the final boss is one where it just feels lazy.
Yeah, I agree. So my question to you, because to me there was one very obvious and almost insultingly simple choice to make when the Master Sword gets taken away from you, and that was to just equip the hammer and use it the same way I was using a sword. Is there a different way that is cooler and more interesting, and or how did you do it?
I fight him with the hook shot.
Oh, sick. All right.
You get to get in close to him, and like before he starts to like wind up to hit you, you hit him with the hook shot, which will stun him for like a little bit. It's really short, but then you can just hop around the side of him and hit his tail with the hook shot. And that's how I fight him if I run out of magic. Like, if I haven't run out of magic yet, I will hit him with the light arrow, and then maybe hit him with the hook shot or an arrow, probably an arrow, like a regular arrow or whatever's easiest, maybe the hammer, whatever. But yeah, then if I use up all the magic in the arena, which I have always done, I finish him off by like hitting him with the hook shot.
Nice.
And you can do similarly with just regular arrows. You can stun him for a second and then hit his tail.
Right. Yeah, I use the light arrows in the like second phase where you have the Master Sword.
Yeah.
But for the first phase, I just used the hammer and then just strafed a lot. Just tried to stay out of his like damage arc, but this is also why he took me down to almost dead health, because I was like trying to jump around him and like get in behind him, and that just doesn't work when you have the Master Sword. Like, he's much more reactive in that phase. Yeah, that's when you have to use the light arrows.
There's probably other ways to hurt him too, knowing Zelda.
Yeah, I'm sure you can like bomb him. Like, throw the bomb between his legs and have it hit the tail from the front?
You can hit the tail with bombs, I know, but it's hard to, like, get the timing right.
Yeah. Oh, man, how about the two places in the whole game where you have to use a bomb chew?
Oh, yeah. It's in the Spirit Temple, I think.
Yep. I liked that it was there, but I don't like how bomb chews work.
Yeah. They're a weird item.
Yeah.
I went out of my way to get them early this time because I feel like it's the sort of thing like Hyrule Castletown is like a pre-rendered background sort of area, And in the original game, I know the stores did not have unique storefronts, so it was really easy to overlook a lot of the stuff in Castletown.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to go to Bombshoe Alley early and get the Bombshoes, and then you just don't need them. And then there's like multiple places where you just get given them.
Yep.
So I was like, well...
They're also a reward for, I think, 30 gold Skullchillas.
Yeah. So I was like, egg on my face for that. But yeah, they are weird. They just feel underdeveloped, which is probably why they're optional. Like, they feel like something that they cut, and they were like, well, we finished it, so we'll keep it in.
Yeah, we'll put, like, one time that you have to use them.
Yeah.
They're interesting in the fact that, like, of what they do, but it feels like between the 3D movement controls and how erratically they move on the ground, it feels more difficult than it probably actually is to aim them.
Yeah.
But anyway, you probably can't use Bombshoes to fight Ganon.
I mean, with a lucky shot.
Yeah. I would like to see that challenge run.
Yeah, only Bombshoes.
Bombshoes only Ganon.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it ends really spectacularly.
Yeah, I ended up the way that I played this game. I finished Spirit Temple, went back to the Temple of Time, got the cutscene, saved the game, stopped playing, and then only later did I come back to do the Ganon fight actually, and getting to sit down and just do Ganon's castle plus the Ganondorf fight and the Ganon fight. It's just a really good sort of like individual piece of gameplay. It's sort of maybe the strongest part of the game.
Yeah, like the little mini dungeon reprisals are satisfying. Yeah, I feel like they got it just right.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's a really good send off to the game. Make you use all your abilities one last time. And go and fight Ganondorf.
Do we have thoughts of wisdom, courage, and strength?
Courage, wisdom, and power, you fucking nerd.
Do we have Triforce thoughts?
My Triforce thoughts are... I think it's really weird to talk about games like this when you didn't play them when they came out. Because... I probably played this 10 years after it came out for the first time, and I really enjoyed it, but like I don't have that like nostalgic attachment to it like I do to like Mario 64 or like Pokemon Red and Blue. Like I'm a definite like 30-year-old like nostalgic man about those games. But this one I'm not like that, but I still really like it a lot. I have that old games literacy that let me go back and play this and like still really enjoy it. But it is clunky. It was made in 1998 and it does show in certain places. But for me, like those don't come anywhere even close to like bringing it down like very much. A lot of the stuff that's special about the game really shined through for me. Like I was talking about at the beginning, like I feel like it has some inspired design choices. Not so much on the mechanical side, although those are also good, but more on like the presentation side, and those are the things that really do it for me. Like things like the fact that Link isn't really Kokiri, but everyone thinks he is, so you come back to the town later in the game and they don't recognize you. Like that's a really cool detail that adds a lot. There's a lot of little things like that, and the fact that like it has the child timeline where everything's more carefree, and it really emphasizes like how shitty the world is now after Ganon's taken it over. And and you first come out of the Temple of Time at the end as adult Link, and it's just like a fuck to death pile of nothing. It just really like there's a lot of little details like that that make the whole game hit harder. And I think that's why this game is remembered so fondly when it comes down to it. And I feel like it does all that stuff really well. I had my whole big thing at the beginning about the age of the developers and them kind of being in their prime and making something that felt like a passion project, and like it had a lot of cool new ideas they were excited about. And for me, that really shines through. And I think that's why this game is still worth going back to, especially the 3DS version.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this a lot, but yeah, it's definitely not perfect, and it isn't going to be for everybody, but I don't know, it really does it for me, and I'm glad I'm one of those people that can enjoy it still.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned presentation there, and I don't. Once again, we're not the most well equipped to talk about this kind of stuff. Before I jump into my final thoughts, I do have to mention that this game also sort of invented good music in video games.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah,
like I love Koji Kondo's music.
Yeah, and every overworld theme, every dungeon theme, everything in this game is extremely evocative, and there's nothing in this that is like annoying or like that drones on. It's all peppy mostly and catchy and sticks in your head. And so that's definitely also part of the presentation and part of why they were able to make a game that was centered around a musical instrument, because there's so much music present in the game, and then the music itself also being good music really helps drive that theme home and make it sort of work. But I'm sure a million billion people have talked about that. So yeah, so to finish up my final thoughts, it's really easy, in my opinion, to give the broad strokes of this game and kind of talk about like what it is and what the themes and the presentation are the things that this game does really well. It has, like, even to this day, when you look at something like the Fire Temple, or you think about that big spider web, or you know, put the iron boots on and raise the water level in the Water Temple, it all comes across very clearly. The game, you remember these temples from when you played them, even if you did play them when you were 5 or 6 years old or whatever, because it's such a memorable and well-designed sort of world. The difficult part, especially considering the big game I talk when I walk in, I'm like, I didn't have any fun playing Ocarina, but if I could fight me or whatever. This is a really well-designed game for the time, but for the time means that now it is hard to play. Like, to me, I found this game just sort of like, it felt very tedious to make my way through. Even when I knew what I was supposed to be doing, it wasn't like easy breezy going through everything. It was like slogging through stuff and taking a lot of detours and going through loading screens and talking to people. And it, to me, it feels kind of old in that way. But on the other hand, what we mostly talked about during this is you go in and you have a cool puzzle and there's something that you really like doing and there's a magic in that. And I think that is what makes this game special now, is you're sort of being let in on the club of people in like in a video game community, especially one in 2021 that is so split between people who have differing opinions on every imaginable facet of video games. Even if I don't like playing Ocarina right now, I still like Ocarina, and I like the fact that it exists and is out there, and it did a lot for sort of games generally. They really just can't be denied. So you play Ocarina not necessarily because it's a must-play game right now. I think that there are a lot of Zelda games that you could play that are going to give you a more unique experience that you really can't get in other places. But you play Ocarina so that you're in on the culture. People know Ocarina and they want to talk about Ocarina, and it's worth it for that. It's like the introduction to video games like course that you would take in a college to understand, because there's a lot of great design that you can learn from this as well. So I don't know. It's a really good game that I just think has aged a lot especially in the last 10 years. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Life is Strange 3, which is actually called Life is Strange True Colors, but I've just been calling it Life is Strange 3 since it came out. It is a kind of an not fitting name because it is like the 5th Life is Strange game.
Sure.
If you go by everything that has the title. The first in the series not to be episodic when it was released. It all came out in a single release, like an individual package. And I played it about a month ago. So I'm going to try and remember all the stuff in it.
I'm dying to play it. I have not had the time.
And we will be back to talk about that then. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to all of our old episodes, our YouTube, our Twitter, our email address if you want to send us a good job email. Yeah, you can check out on the YouTube. We have a playlist of all of our old episodes and several of them by genre. You can listen to us talk about, oh boy, Wind Waker, fucking Link's Awakening,
The Minish
Cap, Breath of the Wild. We've done a Zelda game a year, pretty much, since we started.
Yep.
So
it took us this long to get to Ocarina, but we finally got there.
and
Majora's Mask we've also done.
Yes, and Majora. So we've now covered the N64.
Check.
Which means that next year, if I can mark your calendars, we're talking about Link's crossbow training. It's gonna happen. I feel like the subscribe button is getting a little rusty.
Gonna have to hit it with the hammer.
Yeah, break out your Megaton hammer. Give it a Megaton like boys. Step on the fleshy button, the fleshy subscribe button to open our subscription sphincter.